So, is Angelina Jolie winning an Oscar? Let's talk about it.
I'd like to walk with you through your life. Should I call you Maria or Callas?
Maria, the world's greatest opera singer, lives the last days of her life in 1970s Paris as she confronts her identity and life. This movie is rated R for some language including a sexual reference and is directed by Pablo Larrain. And I'm sure most of you recognize his work. Spencer, Jackie, now Maria. It's almost this trilogy of movies where we're focusing on these very famous or culturally relevant individuals. I think back to Spencer, which is still, admittedly my favorite of the trilogy. It was just so artistic and different and beautiful and amazing performance. But now we have Maria that's, I believe, the least flashy of the three. Also, I just want to pause. If you hear music, my daughter's upstairs watching Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel should be the fourth movie that Lorraine tackles. And this film is fascinating for several reasons. Not only is it the third movie in this crazy, fantastical trilogy based around real-life circumstances, but each movie has its own spin that makes it almost a little outside of reality. And that's very heavy, very prominent in Maria, because in this movie, we don't really know what's real and what's not. A lot of this is taking place in her head, and if you're watching this film unaware of that, go back and look at the names of some of the individuals that she encounters. And don't get me wrong, there are many real qualities, moments, and elements to this movie, specifically what Maria is facing and almost refuses to acknowledge at points that she's facing it. There are several times in this film where people around her are telling her, just call your doctor. I mean, this is something you can't ignore. And she continues to throughout the movie, but at the same time, this is kind of all coming at her at once, and she's living in this false reality, if you will, to where her voice hasn't gone away. The admiration of the fans is still there. I love how she says at one point, she goes out to a restaurant, I'm not really here to eat. I'm here for people to admire me. And I think there's a beautiful grounded quality to this film that lives in a more fantastical reality for a lot of the runtime. But we're also getting flashbacks. We're getting to peek into her life before all of this. When she used to sing for money, I think the black and white sequences are beautiful. In general, the color grading here, the cinematography, the look and feel. I understand Maria getting a lot of nominations centered around Jolie. And I don't know what it would replace. It's not in my top 3 of the year, but I would look at this for cinematography and just the look and feel of it as well, because, man, this is a beautifully shot movie. It's the same director of photography as El Conde last year that got several cinematography nods, and so the look and atmosphere are there. I don't think this is Pablo's best movie in terms of the story, because I feel like Spencer got a little bit more into the psyche of its lead character. I feel as if Jackie had a bit more going on an emotional side of things. Now, this movie is emotional because this woman is essentially at the end of her life, and she is kind of aware of this. The people around her, her butler, her maid, the people in her life that have given her second chances, she tells them that at numerous points in the movie, like, I refuse to do what's necessary. You're the ones that keep me on track and on schedule. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing, because the simplicity of where she is in her life could have made for a flat-out boring movie, but her performance is so good. You get to see a little bit of that backstory and really what she's imagining at this point in her life, whether it be her voice returning, gearing up for her final concert, or just doing this documentary, having some people in her life that aren't even real. They're not even there. All of this makes for a bit more of an, this is a pun, an operatic experience. And those scenes where she is singing to the top of her lungs, beautiful, the orchestra is there. These scenes are filmed so exquisitely. And whether they are happening or not, the direction is flawless in those moments. So Maria has a lot going for it. Now, again, it's not as spectacular of a character study as his first 2 films. You don't quite get as deep. There's a lot we are doing here to allow you to understand where she is at and the refusal, but also the upbringing that got her there in the first place, the mistakes that she may have made along the way, also facing those fears, facing the facts of where you are in your life right now. There's a scene later on, multiple scenes with her sister when she's younger, but there's a scene a bit later on where they have a great conversation, and she's trying to, her sister is just telling her how it is. Not a lot of people in her life are willing to do that, that because of how prestigious she is as a performer, but her sister definitely does that, acknowledges that how music is playing a role in her life, and many people around her are just trying to get her to snap back to reality and the reality of this devastating health situation that she is facing. And man, as this movie winds down, it does get a little slower, admittedly, but the emotions start to pick up, so that was nice. And, I'm not going to say this is the most invested I've been in a film all year. There's this simplicity to it that some people are really going to love. I do wish there was a little more depth there along the way. I wanted to know aspects of her that we just never hit on. I wanted to kind of feel what she's going through now, as opposed to what she went through in the past, which it gets us there, and I appreciate that, but I just didn't quite love this script as much as I wanted to. It's more the performance, and Angelina Jolie is amazing. The plot is somewhat thin on its surface, even though the reality of the situation is much different than what we're getting on screen. Again, she's imagining a lot of this, and the pacing is a little clunky, but Angelina Jolie makes up for a lot of that, and I was having such an awesome time watching her sink into this character because she really sinks in. Apparently, some of the moments where she is singing, I think this is more so when her voice is a little more hoarse and she's not at the height of her powers. That's actually Angelina Jolie. That's what I read. Hope it's true. But that's really amazing, and she just fully takes on this role, encapsulates this character, and you can feel the devastation in her voice, especially the further we get into the film. Even when we're going back in time and we're getting to see kind of how she got to certain places, I was so bought into who she is, where she is at this point in her life, and I was kind of in awe. Now, it's tough to say she gives the best performance of the year, but she's up there for sure, right up there with Demi Moore, Mikey Madison. She's in that conversation, and if she wins the Oscar, I don't think she will at this point, but if she does, I will not be shocked or surprised. And that's one thing he does well as a director is, elevating his actresses. He doesn't need to elevate Angelina Jolie, but getting those types of performances out of them, and he definitely does that with Angelina Jolie here. She's going to get a nomination. She deserves a nomination. She's in my top 3 Best Actress performances of the year, and she really does crush this role. So I don't know how many Oscar noms this is going to get as a whole, but I definitely know it's getting one for Best Actress. Before I give you my score, let me know, are you watching Maria on Netflix? As of right now, who is your Best Actress winner for the Academy Awards? It's a tough one. If you want to see those predictions from me, drop that like. We may do some this weekend. Maria is the perfect vehicle for Angelina Jolie to deliver an Oscar-worthy performance. While it's not quite as well-paced as Larrain's other recent films, Maria provides an emotional exploration of its lead character and how these circumstances lead to a more fantastical exploration of the final few days of her life. It features beautiful color grading, some grand and atmospheric moments, and a spectacular lead performance. Again, not my favorite of his recent 3 movies, but a really good, rock-solid entry and a life that was worth exploring. The opera scenes are great. It's worth watching on a bigger screen for that alone. Thank you guys so much for watching this review, and I'll be back with more Oscar coverage.